Every once in a while, we receive a game that breaks the mold by introducing something fresh and new. In today's sponsored video, brought to you by French publisher La Boîte de Jeux, I will be introducing you to one of those such games. This is called Daimyo: Rebirth of an Empire. A 2 to 4 player, dice drafting, hand management, and area influence game that not only plays like nothing that I've ever experienced before, but is also set in a pretty unique universe that blends several different thematic genres together. So let's actually start right there. Mankind as we know it has come to an end through some unspoken tragic calamity, with the few remaining survivors trying to gain control over the last remnants of what's left of this ancient world. So thematically, this might resemble something like the broken down Earth worlds that have been made incredibly popular by video games like The Last of Us, or maybe even Horizon Zero Dawn. These 6 regions that players will compete over are called the Archipelago of the Six, and are represented by 6 color-coded areas on the game board, each region of which is made up of 3 smaller areas, as well as its own influence track that players will attempt to climb over the course of the game's 5 rounds. You, as the player, will take on the role of a daimyo, or a leader of one of these Bushido-inspired clans, fighting for dominance in each of these regions, with the overall goal being to be the single player with the most popularity at the end of that 5th round. And in order to do this, players are going to have to work to gain influence in each of these regions through a variety of different tasks related to the dice that you draft and use, the miniatures that you send to these areas that represent your clan, and the cards that you purchase and play that have a variety of unique and powerful effects. Each of the game's 5 rounds begins with the rolling of all of the colored dice: blue, green, and red, which will be used in different denominations depending upon the game's player count. Now, in turn order, each player will take a single turn drafting a single colored die, and then placing it onto their player board, immediately taking the associated action until each player has drafted a total of 3 dice. Now, what's important here is that the color of the die that is drafted is all that matters for this particular phase, and will always dictate the slot on your player board where that die must be placed, with each slot providing unique actions for the player to use, such as granting players the opportunity to send their governors or shadows into regions by paying resources to the supply, then immediately raising their influence on that region's track. Or slots that allow players to construct their buildings off of their player boards, such as techno farms that increase your production's capabilities. Or even slots that allow you to collect the resources at every single location on the board where your governors and techno farms currently reside. And each of these 5 action slots on your player board are vital to your success, but you'll only have the opportunity to use 3 of them during a given round, since you're only drafting 3 total dice. And all of this may seem fairly standard up to this point. However, things become far more interesting in this game for 2 main reasons. First, as players begin to slowly construct their buildings onto the map, they will potentially unlock 8 unique bonus action tiles which reside directly underneath each of these buildings at the start of the game. Once a building is constructed, that tile below it is then immediately placed on any of the bonus action spaces on their player board as chosen by that player, which in turn unlocks additional abilities that players may take before or after the main action that is associated with that slot. Now, this effectively allows players to create some really powerful action slots that can provide boons to a player's economy over time, and it's completely up to the player on how they craft each of these particular action slots on their board. But probably even cooler than that is the use of these hero cards throughout the game, of which each player begins with exactly 3 that are tied specifically to their chosen daimyo. Players are only allowed to use a single hero card on their turn, effectively only 1 card per drafted dice that they take. But these cards provide a wide range of effects that can alter your turn's outcome quite dramatically, from providing instant resources that can then fuel your main action for that turn, to recruiting governors or shadows out of sequence. And unlike the action slots that depend solely on the color of the die that was drafted, hero cards depend solely on the pip value of the dice that you currently have on your player board. So in short, you can only play a card on your turn if you have one or more dice on your player board whose total is exactly the same as the strength of the card that you wish to play. Noting that players can modify this amount by discarding cards in their hand to increase or decrease the die values on their board by +1 or -1 for each discarded card in order to match the necessary strength of the card that they wish to use. So, now knowing all of that, players must now not only consider just the color of the die that they wish to draft in order to take the right action on their player board, but also need to account for the bonus tiles that they've earned and where they have slotted them on that board, as well as the pip value of the die that they need to draft in order to play a hero card from their hand that provides yet another powerful effect. And all of these things chain together, creating some incredibly interesting dynamics that players must consider with each building that they construct, each die that they draft, and each card that they wish to use. And this is truly just the tip of the iceberg for all the different things that players must consider on each of their turns, as there are numerous other layers that are stacked on top of each other in each decision that you make, such as relics that can add permanent influence to a region, or shadows that can assassinate opponents' governors, reducing their influence in that region. But I'll let you discover all of these cool combinations on your own. Finally, once each player has drafted 3 dice onto their player board and taken their associated actions, players will then go through a sequence of steps to conclude the round, including gaining income, possibly purchasing new heroes into their hand with yet more unique abilities, and most importantly, earning popularity, or victory points in this game, for having the most influence in each of the game's 6 different regions at the end of the round. And this process will go on for 5 total rounds, with players earning popularity at the end of each round, plus a whole wide range of extra popularity depending upon the things they were able to accomplish throughout the game. So hopefully that gave you at least a small understanding of what you might expect if you decide to help fund this project. And I would invite you to take a look at the final components on their Kickstarter page, as everything that you saw here today was simply in prototype form. And if you have any questions about the game, please, as always, make them in the comments below, and thank you for watching. Hey everyone, if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider dinging the old bell below. That is going to help notify you of new videos that are uploaded to our channel. And as always, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and please consider watching all of our videos, one of which you can see right here to my left.